pandemic has taught us many things. It has brought both tragedy and darkness, and also inspiration and light. The title for the service today was chosen by the Mayor of Brighton and Hove, Councillor Alan Robbins, and the idea for the service came from his chaplain, the Interfaith Contact Group of Brighton and Hove, which has been bringing people of faith and no faith together for 25 years.
We had to have an opportunity to bring people together, to let people have their say about how painful it was, perhaps for people to feel healed by some experiences. There was meditation, there was a wonderful workshop for children, and the actual service itself was a healing experience for many people there. So it was really a spiritual experience for the people of Brighton and Hove, by the people of Brighton and Hove.
So today we are experiencing compassion for ourselves, for those of us who have lost someone we love, and for those of us who know carers and frontline workers who have sacrificed their own health and their strength for others, and for all those who have had to face terrible sadness and sorrow of being alone for a day after day. And on a personal note, on August the 16th this year, I lost my beloved sister Mary to COVID. She spent the last 3 weeks of her time on earth in an oxygen hood, in a vain attempt to save her life. Mary was 6 years older than me. When I was young, she always looked out for me and gave me a home. Like all big sisters, she could be my harshest critic and my greatest supporter. So to all of you who have lost someone, I know and share your grief and pain, and hope and pray that we can all finally find peace. Thank you all very much.
Lean on me when you're not strong. I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on.
I think the IFCG plays a hugely important role in the city in terms of creating a safe space where people from many different faiths and none can come together to share their experiences of going through just such a difficult time. And we know that we are blessed to live in a city that is so full of community and so open-hearted, but to share those stories and to kind of witness really what had happened, I think was a way of both paying tribute to it, but also building that resilience into the future as well.
There is a moment in musical rehearsal when all the players, the choir, the woodwind and brass, the strings and percussion, the entire orchestra stops, and there is peace. And the conductor says 2 words, and rest. Voices cease to sing, the woodwind put down oboes and clarinets, the brass lay down trumpets and trombones, and others do the same. Because the music is over. There is no audience, there is no applause in that moment. Quietness reigns, yet the quiet that follows remains harmonious. Together we share that moment of closure when the conductor says, and rest.
I think that the pandemic, it was such an unusual event. It was important that people had a chance to say what they felt about it, and particularly through telling some of their own personal stories. To hear from, the bus driver who worked throughout the whole of the pandemic.
They don't publish the good news. The good news is published by us. We have a special edition every moment, and we need you to read it.
At the time, every day we were hearing stories in the news of people who couldn't see their relatives who were dying, or they couldn't have the wedding that they had planned. But that soon gets lost, and it was important that we allowed space to mark some of that.
It's good to be here today, to be together at last, to help us to acknowledge and begin to process what has happened to each of us, to everyone, through these recent years, through the pandemic. I run a small, flexible funeral service in Brighton, and I'm grateful to have the opportunity, a chance to share a thought or two today about my recent experiences at work. Good funerals take into consideration the differing expectations and the differing beliefs of everyone coming along to find the common ground in that collective experience. So the concept of the Day of Compassion was ever so similar to the concept of what a good funeral is, what a good memorial is. We witnessed funerals shrinking because they had to, and then something unexpected came from these small, often beautiful events. Some mourners recognised a new kind of freedom at such intimate gatherings, no longer concerned about their outfits, no longer under the pressure of being on show. They found that they had more space, more time to say their personal goodbyes. Of course, we were all worried at the beginning, and there have been moments of overwhelm. Life has changed forever. We're still dealing with the local consequences, and we're still processing the global repercussions. And I hope that together we can begin to heal.
We come now to the heart of our service. We have asked the Florentine String Quartet to accompany the reading of the names of those we've lost.
Mary O'Sullivan, David, Alan Varney, Albert, Barbara.
Very often, when we live our lives in a kind of ordinary, everyday way, we don't think about what we do. But when you actually are presented with a moment when we all come together, and it's a moment of sacred inspiration, it actually does change our thinking. It changes our minds, it changes the way we relate to each other, it reminds us of what we did before and what we want to do afterwards. So it is definitely a point in time that is very important and cannot and will never be lost.
We were really pleased to have the Book of Condolence based in the library so that any residents could come in and write a message about their experience during the COVID pandemic.
Dandelion, clock watching, got my watch to rule my
I just think it was really important to acknowledge what had happened. Everybody was trying to just, I don't know, carry on and carry on and carry on. And I think we all needed to take a moment.
And let the robin on the fence post guide the way.
It's amazing how in times of stress and collective grief, we still find time for joy. And one of the joyous places during lockdown for me was my garden. I would sit there in that fruitful silence of the garden and write these poems. This one is called Harbor. When it's all over, and hopefully it will be over, I'll probably look back and miss this strange web of our togetherness. My daughter's faces blooming on the small sky of my mobile. Yes, the virtual world can console. But watch how easily I'll trade it for the simple harbor of a hug. Thank you.
I heard that we were in the same boat, but it's not like that. We were in the same storm, but not in the same boat. Your ship can be shipwrecked, or mine might not, or vice versa. And each one will emerge in his own way from that storm. some with a tan from the pool, others with scars on their soul. It is very important to see beyond what is first seen at first glance.
As the Interfaith Contact Group represents a number of different faiths and people of no faith, we wanted to make sure that our political leaders were involved, and all three of the Brighton and Hove MPs agreed to take part.
Listen, with the night falling, we are saying thank you. We are stopping on the bridges to bow from the railings. We are running out of the glass rooms with our mouths full of food to look at the sky and say thank you. We are saying thank you, faster and faster, with nobody listening. We are saying thank you, we are saying, and waving, dark though it is.
I think all of the politicians, local and national, recognise the place that faith groups play in part of community cohesion. And I hope people feel that faith groups have a place to play in community support and cohesion that perhaps they weren't aware of before the COVID virus came along.
It is sharing that is the key, because when we share pain, it may feel less cruel. In this way, the losses and sorrow that our city, our country, and our world have had to bear over the last 22 months can be made so much easier. Perhaps this is why we need days like the Brighton and Hove Day of Compassion.
There was an amazing moment after the Cheer Up Mollies sang and everybody really applauded. I thought that was a very moving moment because there'd been a lot of sadness, and then suddenly there was this wonderful moment of relief, as if to say, yes, we can smile, we can laugh in a sacred service. I thought that was a great moment, actually.
Cheer Up Mollies, I want them to follow me around wherever I go.